Anyone else notice every time I walk in here, these guys just act like they're dying without me? They're so funny. It was really cold last night. I'm sure everyone is posting about the winter storm in their areas, but here it was cold enough that the lines are frozen and we had to haul out the water from inside our bathtub because all of our water hoses are frozen. And even with heat lamps and everything blocked off in the coop, these guys have just, of course, made a mess of their water. We've even blocked off part of the doors. You can see the plastic up to try to keep out the wind and hold in the heat a bit. And so I'm just doing my usual hauling out the water. But instead of filling it up outside, I'm filling it up from inside and using a bit warmer water, trying to keep it from freezing. It is much warmer in here. But yesterday I came out and the duck eggs were frozen. And so I dug up some of the goose eggs to see if they were frozen too in the nest, because this is her first time laying eggs. And she's under a year old, and surprisingly, they were warm. So she's actually been in here, but today they're cold, and look, this is where the ducks luckily have started putting their eggs here. And even in here they were getting cold, so we definitely had to take some measures to try and warm them up. You can tell that the geese have their eggs in here because she is so mad at me for being in this coop right now. But she's honestly pretty calm. She hasn't been in me or anything. I did go grab this bag of feed of just some cheap, nothing special scratch to try and get them a little more warmed up, generate some heat. But honestly, the ducks and geese seem to love the weather. Now, this girl here, thank God she asked first. She wasn't loving it. Her water at one point in time, it was frozen all the way to here. So I filled it up with warm water. We kind of covered all the openings. During the summers, it's so hot. I mean, we have months of just 100-degree plus weather. And so this is all vented up top to kind of help that heat escape so they can get some protection from the hot weather in here. Unfortunately, it's just not made to withstand cold temperatures because we don't experience temperatures like that here. And I know up north a lot of you are like, hey, why don't y'all, do a better job at insulating and digging down below the, to where they're not going to freeze. For us, that's not really an option. We live on the coast, and if I dig 6 inches down to plant a tree in my yard, it just fills up with water. There's water everywhere. The water table is extremely high. We're not that much above sea level. And, in some areas of our town, we're right at sea level. We're surrounded by the bay. And so digging down, making sure your pipes aren't freezing is a lot harder said than done. Now, a couple of years ago, it got even colder. It got down to 9 degrees. Everyone lost power in Southeast Texas because we can barely handle the cold, but the Texas are barely handle the heat. But in the cold, our power grid's not set up for it, and it was just absolutely miserable. So all of our pipes burst, of course. That even the ones inside the toilets. And we have a house that's 2 feet off the ground. It's a very old, it's a 1901 home that we've been slowly remodeling. It was a nightmare. These ducklings are over here dropping food on me. So luckily we got some pecks saying they're completely doing the water lines. So we just decided to not just let our water lines drip, but let them run slightly, and that's actually kept our lines from freezing. We almost had the hot water line frozen. Now, the outside lines are frozen. The water hose is literally like a straight line. It's crazy. So that's why I've been hauling water out. Here we are. There's now 6 goose eggs. So I've missed a couple of days. She's basically laid 1 a day, but she always lays at night. But honestly, these were kind of warm last night. They're cold. Really cold. I'm actually tempted to take them inside, but I think these may be frozen, guys. So that's basically a bunch of pointless eggs in a nest. And she just kind of keeps them buried, so I'll do the same. But I think it's safe to say those eggs aren't any good. I may try to crack one open just to see. I really wish I would have taken the eggs out sooner. I'm kind of disappointed, but they were warm last night, and I just didn't want to bother her. I'm kind of new. It's the first time I've had geese, so I'm learning a lot. I did go ahead and mix their feeder half and half with scratch and some feed, so that keep it in here in case they want to kind of hunker down. Now, it's been raining, and then we got the cold, so now we just have a slushy mess. I mean, it is so incredibly muddy out here. We even had to drain this water from the pond because there's no way to rinse it out or anything. You know, all of our water hose lines are frozen. So you can't tell now, but I pulled fresh water out of the house last night. But with all the mud, they've of course made it a muddy mess. Because ducks and geese have no problem with bathing in weathers in the teen, as it turns out, which is just wild to me. But here's this bucket over here for the geese that's a little taller. We had this one gallon bucket, but they've already completely emptied it out. Actually, yeah, I think that's 1 gallon. And then here's some of the babies, and even though they're not quite fully feathered, they absolutely insist on being outside of the house. The only ones that actually wanted to kind of stay in the coop were these Welsh Harlequins. They were very serious about staying in the coop, and one of them even had ice on her, and she looks like she still has some mud on her feathers. So I'm going to try to catch her and pull all that mud off. Look at that. That is a mess right there. That's not going to be an easy task, but I'll definitely try. The geese enjoying the cold weather, but of course they are muddy. Now, I did notice that last night this was even more frozen. Like, the ground is pretty solid, which is definitely unusual for the ground to be this solid and icy here. So even though I brought fresh water out, I did notice that the ducks were basically drilling holes, and the geese were too, drilling bigger holes, and the ducks would come behind them. You can see right here it's kind of icy. It's actually more solid than it was last night. There's usually water underneath it. It's pretty solid. So here is when the goose actually came out, and he like drilled a hole with his bill, and then the geese came behind him and were drinking. The ducks came behind the goose and were drinking out of that in here too. So they're actually pretty clever. You know, I've never seen so much. It's crazy that I know Texas A&M, I was reading earlier this year, they were considering rezoning because it's been significantly colder. The average temperatures have been hotter in the summer and significantly colder in the winter the last several years. And it was like, okay, well, an occasional year or two of extreme weather, but just continuous extreme weather several years in a row, that's pretty interesting, you know? Look at that. They love the cold. It's crazy that these guys are so obsessed with running around and making such a big mess in this cold weather. It really freaked me out, but they are absolutely insistent that they are good to go. So I would definitely say, I see all these chicken parents out here saying, you know, they're worried about their chickens freezing, but my ducks are loving it. You know, I used to have chickens, and it was a pain to try to keep them warm enough and everything else. Luckily, waterfowl, their feathers are really tight against their bodies, and they have oils to keep them waterproof, and I think this makes a big difference. These are all of our mallard Welsh Harlequin crosses, and they have a little bit of khaki Campbell in them too. Just a big cross, and look at them having the time of their life. I am worried, so I'm keep hauling water out here because they can't get in the pond and clean off like usual, and that's kind of what they love to do, and it's really important for them to have water to clean off their feathers, whether it's cold or not. Now look at this. These are all of our plants that were in here that we've kind of been growing, and I just didn't have time to come out and harvest them, and they definitely froze. These are all frost hardy plants. There are turnips, and over here some peas growing along the fence, so I know that these are all going to pass by. There's even collard greens. Now I can still come in and harvest these and take them inside, soak them in water, And then I'll have to basically cook them down and freeze them immediately, or dehydrate and powder them. If you have a freeze dryer, that would also be a good option, because they will get soggy after being frozen and thawed. And if you've ever thawed or frozen vegetables that you haven't cooked beforehand, you know how that gets kind of a mess. But they'll still be good to put in soups and everything now, or feed to the geese and the ducks. And the geese absolutely adore fresh greens. And you can kind of see here, this is our passion fruit vine, and it's still alive, you know, but it's wilted pretty bad. Now, one thing I actually might walk around to show you is, look at this pond. It is several inches frozen, which blows my mind. Now, luckily we have goldfish in the pond, 5 of them, which are very frost hardy fish. They even, when they ship them, when I was a girl, I remember my grandmother telling me stories about how they would ship her goldfish and koi in blocks of ice from overseas to put in her pond, which is really cool. Hi, sweet boy. Hi, Shadow. This is Shadow Floyd. We had a cat like this named Shadow when our kids were younger. And one of my daughter's favorite shows, their cat looks just like this, and his name is Floyd. So he has 2 names, depends on who's calling him, but he's super sweet. He spent most of the day cooped inside, and he's so sad. He's ready to be outside and play. He absolutely loves hanging out around the garden. So you can kind of see through the fence how much damage is done, but they're not dead. You know, some of them are already bouncing back because the weather's not in the teens right now. It's double what it was last night with the sun out. And so they're doing a little better. What's not doing good are my banana plants. So if you've seen how we grow banana plants in Southeast Texas video, this is not it. We meant to protect them, but we did not. And so they're kind of soggy. I know some people will kind of cut them at an angle. I tried that and got worms in them one year. It just completely destroyed the plants. So I'm just going to let them do their thing. If they completely die back to the base, that's fine. The pups will shoot up from the rhizomes later this year. This banana plant right here, this is our 2nd year growing it. So it was going to produce fruit in the spring, which takes about 9 months. So I am kind of disappointed. But look at it. I mean, it's a good solid base. This is not dead right here. And so I'm hoping that, because this is okay right here, where all the leaves are wrapped up, so after it warms up, it'll just shoot up again and start producing. It may not, but it could. I've seen it happen before, which is pretty nice. So here are my seedlings. They're sad. I didn't bring them in. Some of these are artichokes you see right here. The ones that are supposed to be cold hardy, but they're not quite big enough, right? This one is a loquat that I was rooting. And so you can see all the nectar of the god plants are basically dead. This one may not be, but you know, I don't know. I don't think that's a plant that really does well here. I really think it needs an overall cooler place to grow. Some of the blackberries, this one actually survived. These are root cuttings I took for myself. And these are some of our plants, our seedlings, and they look pretty damaged and wilted, but some of them, like this kale right here, what is this? That looks like 1,000 head kale by the thing, is doing okay. And so is this blue kale. And so some of this might actually, this is baby kohlrabi. And these are just lettuce and broccolis. I think some of these actually, especially the kale, will be fine. But I don't know. Sad looking seedlings. Luckily I can restart them, you know. It's not going to be the end of the world. Oh gosh, cinder block. Okay, look at this. These are actually, some of these are doing fairly well. This one right here, what is the, oh yeah, look, it's a little turnip. Purple top turnip it looks like. Maybe, I don't know. It has a pretty good root on it, and it's actually doing pretty well. So I guess what actually mostly wilted is the collard greens, and you can see these carrots are doing okay too. They can handle the freeze. The peas are okay. Look at that. Just passion fruit is wilted, but it's really not horrible. Oh yeah, look at this. One of the purple roots. These are actually doing surprisingly well producing a little root already. You know, I planted these over a month ago. So I'm surprised they didn't get as much damage as I thought. I don't see my fish. These are actually my 5-year-old's fish. She is obsessed with goldfish. Oh, I can actually see them. Look at this. Oh, I'm kind of in the way of the sun. Look at that. Those orange speckles. They're all the fish. Alive and well at the bottom. Yep, there they go. Screaming off because I moved the water. Look at this. Wow. Whole sheet of ice along the entire top. Look at that. Isn't that cool? So, fish took off. Oh, there's one still hanging out, but so you can see they're doing really well even though it's cold outside. Just kind of hibernating. So, you know, it's not the best outcome, but it's absolutely not the worst. These are goji berries. If you're wondering if they'll survive frost, yes, they will. Look at that. These babies were producing before the frost hit. Kind of see some of the berries. The geese have pretty much stripped them of their leaves where they can reach, and that is okay. We actually planted them to kind of protect the pins, so, and give them a food source. I actually really like it like that. So you can kind of see some of the roots. Might just cut some of these back and feed them. Look at that one over there. Still pretty upright. I definitely think that once the freezing weather is gone, these will just pop right back up. No big deal at all. I know the peas will. There's some crazy hardy peas. Sweet peas are so good. These are just burpy sweet peas, but I'm always amazed at how hardy they are. I mean, I've seen them go through frost before. And last year we were harvesting peas all the way through March. So I'm not the least bit worried about some of these going through that. I'm still amazed by this one little turnip. Look at that. I'm pretty impressed. It's putting on a little bulb and doing so well during this cold snap. It really does bring some joy in gardening, especially when you're first learning how to homestead, which we are. And we're in the city on 0.68 of an acre. So it's all kind of new to us, you know, kind of learning by trial and error. And there's a lot of error and trial, as it turns out. But I think I'm just going to get back to it. And look at that. Oh, you know what? There's one more thing I kind of want to show you guys. The wind blew the gate shut and the poor cat totally freaked out. He was like, whoa, not cool. It's cool. Let's see. Okay, so the strawberries are doing well, you know. Here, the, oh man, Tabasco peppers, they look rough, but I know they'll bounce back. If it stays warm enough here and doesn't freeze, these are perennials here. And so you can see where some of the peppers froze, but this doesn't look like a dead plant. It looks like a shocked plant, but I think it'll be okay. If you don't know, if you live in warm areas where it stays substantially warm, everything, a lot of peppers actually grow into trees. They get really woody, tall, and produce for years and years and years. Same for okra. They're actual perennials in a really warm climate. I've even seen where some people can grow certain types of winter squash for over a year, depending on their climate, which is wild because I can't even grow summer squash through the squash bug season here. You can see I took a lot of cuttings and put them in, but I don't know how they're going to do because it froze. The blackberries, you can see where the leaves froze, but they are okay. These are perennial plants. They are evergreen. They're going to be fine. This was a squash that had survived 30-degree weather. But guess what, guys? It's not surviving 19-degree weather. It is complete mush. You know, well, I say that the root's actually pretty good here. I'm actually amazed that this part of the stem's okay. It's wild. My baby blackberry plant shooting back up again that I cut down. Doing okay. So here's kind of our compost piles and everything else. You can see our grapevine growing across it. Grapes go dormant, so this is good. They were dormant already. And some more of our little baby turnip plants. They're doing okay. These for sure are purple top. I can see the purple roots. So I think overall the blackberries did really well. This kale is from last year. We harvested quite a bit and it just kind of stayed dormant during the summer, and now it's really cold. It's coming back. So these are biennials, but I've seen people keep them for more than 2 years. This one's a second-year plant, and so are a couple others that we have in different places. I'm not going to show you those today, but they're just dwarf curly leaf kales. Here's the broccoli. It did pretty well too. This is just a sprouting broccoli, so nothing special. And here's some of our fig plants. It lost all its leaves, but it is okay. Sorry about my shadow. There's all the sun coming down. So this is another orange tree. This is a Sumatra, and it's a Milo Sumatra, and it doesn't even have frost damage. It has some yellowing of the leaves, but it looks amazing. Now this over here is our Meyer lemon that's supposed to be a little more hardy, and I would say not so much. It definitely took some pretty heavy frost damage. Pretty rough. But what did do okay is our peach tree, which is already dormant for the year. And this little guy, believe it or not, has grown a foot since I planted him this summer. And that is a Prince peach. Our blueberries, they did okay. They're very small. Look at that. They're okay. And my apple tree, which obviously is going to do just fine. I have a couple apple trees, 3. This one is a Gala apple. I have, I don't know how to pronounce it. Is it Ian Shemer? I always pronounce it so, I just butcher the name. A good green, low freeze hour apple, 100 freeze hours. But at this point, I think that 100 freeze hours is not good for our climate anymore, you know? And then I have a crab apple. So, you can kind of see everything. I think that I'm actually going to go in there and grab some geese eggs and try to maybe see what's going on. I really am afraid that those goose eggs are frozen, which really stinks, you know? Last thing you want is to get your first goose ever laying eggs and then them freeze in abnormally cold temperatures that you don't even experience in your climate most years. So it's a bit of a disappointment. Y'all might think I'm crazy, but if they're frozen, I will eat frozen goose eggs. I'm not above it. If I crack one open and it's not frozen, I'm going to be disappointed that I cracked it. But there's still 5 eggs, and she's actively laying. She's an Ebden goose, so I think we'll be okay. So thank you guys for hanging out with me. I'll probably put a little short video about what happened with the goose eggs and if they're frozen or not up so you can see it. Or I'll just kind of squish it on the end of this video, and you'll be surprised that it's not ending when I said it would. But I hope you all guys have a very Merry Christmas, and enjoy your holiday with your family.